My name is Mabel Moore, and I'm the Vice President and CIO at Xavier University in New Orleans. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about navigating a cybersecurity event in real time. Okay, first I just want to tell you who I am and to give you a little bit of my background. I'm a computer scientist. I have been for the past 42 years. From graduating right out of college into my first job, starting as a programmer at that time. And I've had a number of different job titles. They're there. I spent about 12 years in private industry working for the Dow Chemical Company. But for the last 30 years, I've worked in higher ed on about 6 different campuses, mainly in a number of different jobs as database administrator. I've done cybersecurity. I've pulled wires. I've set up a new data center. You name it, I've done it, if it's dealt with technology. Those are some of the titles I've held: Dean, Director, CTO, CIO. Most recently, the last 5 years, I've been at Xavier as their CIO and Vice President. I'm an educator. I have taught technology, resources, cybersecurity, and a number of the courses online for about 5 years. I haven't done that in a while. And I'm an administrator. I'm responsible for the money. The buck stops with me. So everybody wants to talk to me about money, products, but what I want to talk about today is cybersecurity and how to better secure your organization or your environment. Okay, that's basically what I've done, but who am I and who do I say I am? I think of myself as a pioneer because I wrote my first computer program on cards, index cards, and submitted them to an IBM mainframe. Fast forward 35, 40 years, and I've gone through PC, Apple, middle computers, you name it, I've programmed on it, or I've worked with it. I describe myself as a transformational change agent the last 30 years on college campuses. And when I say transform, I come in and I look at people, processes, resources, systems, how they work, and how to make them work better or how to secure them better. But my most important job is mom and now grandmama because I have a new grandbaby. But that's me. Zula's relationship with AWS. We've had about a 6-year relationship with AWS in that we've been backing up our resources to the cloud for about 5 years. And in the last 2 years, I met 2 really instrumental people that have worked very closely with me at AWS. One is Katie Rosenthal. I'm not sure if she made it here. She's in San Diego. And another is Vishal, our technical rep. And one of the things that I was interested in was migrating our environment to the cloud. There were 2 reasons. One, our geographical location, and that Xavier University is located right next to the Gulf of Mexico. And if you know that area, you know it's Hurricane Alley. And 2 years ago, we had a severe hurricane hit that had an entire brownout for the city of New Orleans and all the surrounding areas for a week. So any of you that have known anything about data centers and backup and recovery, you know we were pretty much in a fix in trying to continue operations with our business continuity plan and all of our resources on campus. So one of the impetus to us migrating to the cloud was geographical location. The other was security. I felt we could better secure it there. And the last reason was basically I wanted to move our critical applications as well as our data and to reduce our footprint in the data center. Our data center lease was expiring. It was about 5, 6 years old. And this was an opportunity for me to do things differently. So I met with a couple of AWS people at EDUCAUSE. I'm not sure if many of you have gone to that conference. And from there, we devised a plan for Xavier University of Louisiana, or Zula, to migrate our data and critical applications to the cloud. Cybersecurity events. 2022 was what I would call cybersecurity events on steroids. And that a number of educational institutions across the country were hit with cybersecurity events. And for many of you that know cybersecurity events, you know it happens at Murphy's Law, the worst possible time. Whatever can happen will happen. And our particular cybersecurity event wasn't one event in 2022. We actually had 4 events in 2022. Different severity levels. The first one I'll talk about a little bit later on, but either they require a software patch or upgrade. They may require you to basically reconfigure 1 or 2 servers, or they may be a severe cybersecurity event dealing with stolen credentials, identity theft, things of that nature that can cause you some really, really serious issues. At Xavier, we had 4, and I'll describe those 4. And in the middle of having a cyber event, we actually were migrating our data to the cloud. So it was the worst possible time for us. But what causes cybersecurity events? It could be a user. Your users need to have regular cybersecurity training. It could be a vendor. The vendor's software or hardware has vulnerabilities. And yesterday they didn't have those vulnerabilities, but today they do. And today, if they have those vulnerabilities, they're your problems, especially if they can affect your environment. It could be infrastructure. It could be your Active Directory is out of date. It could be your VPN. It could be that you have no endpoint protection for your devices on your network. Or it could be just bad actors who are professionally trained and have made cybersecurity attacks a way of business. Many of them have actually done ransom attacks and are in the millions or almost $1 billion in some of these gangs in attacking or doing a cybersecurity attack and then demanding ransomware. So in short, cybersecurity is a continuous improvement process. With the best of cybersecurity plans, data breaches are not a matter of if, but when. The more you know, the better prepared you are in case you have a particular cybersecurity event. And I feel like at Xavier University, we were very prepared because we did have a business continuity plan. We did have backup and recovery on site as well as in the cloud. And we did have a plan A, B, and C. And when we did have an event, because I am under a attorney-client privilege, I cannot go into details of that event, but what I can share with you is that you do need a plan A, B, and C, and you do need to be able to execute that plan very quickly because the longer you are down, the more people you are affecting and the more business you are affecting by being down. So the clock starts ticking as soon as you're affected. So things have to happen very, very quickly. There is hope, and when I say there is hope, if there is a cybersecurity event, Homeland Security, the FBI, a number of different agencies will show up and will give you assistance. Recently, there was something published that the FBI infiltrated a group and actually helped to disrupt that group. It's called Hive. It was one of the second largest cybersecurity bad actors in the business. They were infiltrated, and the group was busted up in January of 2023. So that's what I mean when I say there's hope. I'm going to talk about what's called a mild event. And this mild event, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions. If it was a vendor, did the vendor notify you? And the answer in this particular case, yes. Did the vendor send a fix or a patch? Yes. Was there a system shutdown? No, it was just a quick patch or software update. Did it affect your user environment? No, it did not. A few examples of vendor vulnerabilities, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples in the next slide. This is kind of an email that I received, and you don't necessarily want to receive these emails because they come in the middle of the night or in the day. That basically tells you that you have a software vulnerability and you need to look into it as soon as possible. This particular software vulnerability was dealing with software that we were using during our COVID-19 pandemic for testing, doing COVID tests. And there was a vulnerability in the Java code that was built to run this software. So this particular vendor was sending me a notice that we needed to do a patch or an upgrade because there was a vulnerability in this software that we were running. So the vendor was kind enough to notify us early, and it did not infect our environment. So that was one of the 4. Cybersecurity breach or shutdown of your test environment. We at Xavier run a test environment, a pre-prod, and a production environment. Why? Because we build software from scratch, and you don't necessarily want to build software and go and run it live in the production environment with user data. In this particular cybersecurity event, it affected our test environment, and it was a software patch that also affected our enterprise system, our student information system, and it affected it in the test environment. So who, what, when, or where, it did affect us because in the middle of my users testing an upgrade, they basically couldn't log in. They couldn't log in to the portal. So it affected the enterprise systems portal or single sign-on. So that was another cybersecurity event from 2022. That happened, I believe, in April. So this was April 22nd, and this is an email that I received from another vendor that told me, I'm reaching out to you about our security vulnerability, and this vulnerability was dealing with single sign-on. So did the user, did they notify us? In this particular case, they did not notify us. They notified us after we did our own research about 8 days too late. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was this cybersecurity issue? In my opinion, it was a 10 because it allowed a bad actor to actually upload malware to our test server, something you never want to happen. And the vendor had a fix, but they notified us 8 days after the first event happened. So that's why my test environment stopped, because I wasn't notified. Did the vendor send a fix? No, we shut down and then we called them and then they sent a fix 8 days later. Did it affect the user environment? Yes, it did, because my test users were trying to test software that we needed to upload for financial aid. And financial aid affects who? Affects our students. We're a university. Students can't get their aid, that's an issue. So this was the second email notification I received about the single sign-on being an issue. And basically, you just get this blanket email, and then you start doing your research to see, well, if it's an issue, do you have a fix? And how fast can we fix it? And did this just happen, or did this happen a week ago? I mean, how much time do we have before it affects our users? This, and I hope you can see it because it's kind of light, the chart, but this is a denial of service attack that was happening on our website during a live cybersecurity event. And we were fortunate in that several of my staff members noticed it and started monitoring the different things that were happening. This happened on November the 28th at about 11 o'clock in the morning. And the frequency could be anywhere from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 15 minutes. But if you notice this scale to the right here, it tells you the denial of services. And this AWS Shield Advanced Services was a system that we worked with AWS to install on our website to prevent DDoS, or denial of services. And we thought about that right after we had a prior event. Was this something we might want to do in case our website or websites were being attacked, doing a cyber event. And this is indeed what happened in late November and December. So these denial of service attacks went from about 24 hits to 181,000 hits to 1.1 million hits to 30 million hits, 30,800,000 hits, all the way to 973 million hits in a very short period of time, and then they just stopped. And what I want to share with you is that this AWS Shield Advanced Services product held up because we kept running the entire time, and our website never came down. So it was not noticed by our users or our outside users. But basically, it helped us to protect our environment while this event was happening. And I have a couple of other slides to share. These particular attacks continued for a week, and they continued between November the 28th and December the 6th of 2022. And the second set of attacks began on December 6th at about 1:53 a.m. in the morning, and they started at about 66,000. Then they went up to 1 million, 6 million, 39 million, 196 million, 1.2 billion, all the way up to 1.5 billion until they actually got tired of sending denial of services attacks to bring our system down. And again, the AWS Shield Advanced Services product held up, and we were not brought down. This kind of gives you a summary of the events. The summary of the events on December 6th, the time duration was about 5 minutes. The time duration later on December 6th was 8 minutes of constant attacks. Later on at 2 a.m., it was for an hour. And then later on December 7th, it was 9 minutes of denial of service attacks. One of the things that I want to stress upon you is that if you ever have a cybersecurity event or attack, you need to assume that the bad actor or the gangs know as much about your system as you did, because they probably stole credentials, they probably planned the attack at least 2 months in advance, and they planned when they would actually issue the attack. And with universities, it's usually the beginning of the semester or the end of the semester to put them in the most critical situations such that they can't finish their semester, and it will force them to pay ransom or to take some type of act. So Xavier University needed a new cybersecurity approach or plan, because once we did have a serious event, you need to assume that the bad actors know your system and can compromise your system. So we went through an extensive forensic and recovery, and then we designed a totally new cybersecurity layered approach with endpoint protection, with 24/7 monitoring, using a number of different layered products and resources, more frequent security awareness training. But we basically went through a totally different approach and evaluated ourselves and looked at all of what we call our NIST 800-171 standards. And those are cybersecurity standards that the Higher Education Institute are held by according to the Department of Defense. So we got some additional help to help us to strengthen our plan. And over the past 2 months, we have significantly layered and improved our plan. And this summer, we will be doing penetration testing to test our own plans, to penetrate ourselves. So, after what I would call the cybersecurity year on steroids with 4 different types of software, and what I found out in December was we did have a hardware vulnerability that caused us to have this serious cybersecurity event. We have a new and improved cybersecurity incident plan and a new and improved disaster recovery or continuous business continuity plan. And I have listed in bullet 3 some of the tools that we've installed: KiteWorks, Varonis. I mentioned AWS Shield Advance, Cisco Duo, Cisco Umbrella, Microsoft Defender for email, CrowdStrike for endpoint protection, 24/7 monitoring for Varonis and for CrowdStrike. We have layered and improved our infrastructure, and at the same time, after the cybersecurity event and after renovating our cybersecurity plan, we were able to move the rest of our data to AWS Cloud and have a brand new infrastructure with 90% of our data in the cloud. And the last 10% resides on the campus for small systems like point of sale and door locks and things of that nature. But if we ever have another serious flood or hurricane, we can virtually run from anywhere. And we have 2 backup and recovery server plans in different parts of the country, one in the central United States and one in the western part of the United States for recovery. So we have our own virtual private cloud. We don't have to worry about hurricanes and no power. And we have been tested and have totally renovated our business continuity plan as well as our cybersecurity plans. At this time, I will entertain questions if you have them. I'd like to thank you for coming to my lightning talk today. Again, I am Mabel Moore, the Vice President and CIO at Xavier, and that is my phone number and my email.